To give us perspective on all of this is more is Mark Carnevale. He was the 1992 PGA Tour Rookie of the Year. That distinction is now called the Arnold Palmer Award. Carney, thanks for joining us. I guess there's no other place that I can start with you on this Tuesday morning than to ask, based upon what you eyewitnessed this past week as part of the coverage, what do you make of the performance that you saw from Scottie Scheffler in winning back-to-back players?
Flat out impressive, Matt. We chatted a little bit last week about this, and your stats right there speak for themselves. This is a golf course, I think, where stats sort of confirm your winner. This is a golf course where driving accuracy is very important. Greens in regulation is very important. Obviously, putting is important every week, but this week, in my opinion, it tends not to be quite as important in the sense of if you're not getting yourself to the greens, you're going to be struggling at times. But it's just an unbelievable performance, and you factor in the slight injury or whatever you call it, injury, the crick in his neck or whatever ultimately it was, for Scottie Scheffler to battle through that. And that's to me just a sign of the best players in any sport. They have a desire to win. They will try to do whatever they can to get through whatever injuries they have. And that was just a perfect example of it. But let's not count out the performances of Brian Harman and Wyndham Clark and Xander Schauffele as well. I mean, they were right there. And the fact that all three of them had an opportunity to tie Scottie on the 18th hole is attributed to this golf tournament, to the way the course was playing. And it just, what a finish. But no, it's 2 weeks in a row. I only followed Scottie on Thursday and Friday. So I wasn't with him on the weekend, but obviously we're watching and seeing what's going on. And he just has this knack where it's like, okay, you're going to give me a chance here. I'm gonna make my push. Now, as we always talk about, Matt, there's luck in this game in order to win golf tournaments, and certainly the hole out at 4 was impressive, and certainly contributed to his ability to get close to the lead. But just he's just an unusual player in the fact that we know he's talented, but at the same time, and you heard in his interview, just a lot of the humbleness that he exudes. And I just think that's very unique and very impressive.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Carney. Very unique and very impressive is well phrased when we're talking about Scottie Scheffler. In round 1, he had a 67. You noted that you were assigned to him in rounds 1 and 2. He had a 67 in round 1. He had a 69 in round 2. From what you saw on Thursday and Friday, were you sitting back going, okay, this is pretty typical Scottie Scheffler, although he's picking up where he left off with a win the week before, which is clearly not easy. He spoke in his sound about it being a mental and physical test to play that well in back-to-back weeks. But nonetheless, 67, 69, were you thinking this is a pretty good start, or were you starting to think that, yeah, maybe something is going on here with the physical ailment or otherwise?
Well, certainly with the opening round, that was impressive. And look, and obviously there's been comparisons with he and Tiger Woods, and you had to laugh at his response to some of the fans that were talking about it, and the reality that he understands that he's a long way to go. But just his performance on the golf course, and Tiger always started, I wouldn't say he never got off to a really hot start, but kind of worked his way through the tournament and improved every day. So the opening 67, I thought, pretty normal. He played in the afternoon, where tends to be the afternoon conditions just a little more challenging, but there was good scores in both rounds, morning and afternoon. And then the way he battled through Saturday, I mean, it looked like maybe he was too far back because the extent of the injury was unknown. But as he said in his press conference, it didn't get any worse on Saturday, and he felt good about that, and that it continued to improve, still getting treatment. It just shows you can't ever count him out. I mean, 5 shots back in any tournament is maybe not so much. In this tournament, I think it tends, that's a pretty good hill to overcome. And he just kept putting himself in position. I mean, I guess he was 7 under and 14 under, so he would have been 7 back going into the weekend. And you're thinking, okay, go out there, make sure you can get through it. He's going to have another good week. But then it's almost like he turned on the switch, flipped the switch there as he got to finish his rounds on both days. And I've come to believe to never unexpect anything, Matt, in the sense of golf is challenging, but all these players are so good. But now we're coming to expect that from him without question.
My sense is, Carney, and I don't have any evidence to back this up, that I can say, well, look what he did here or look what he did there. I'm more looking at, he comes off the win at the Arnold Palmer Invitational and comes into this one ready to go, but he overcomes a physical ailment. All of these different pieces that at the end of the day add up to him winning a second consecutive Players. I just feel like, and I'm not suggesting that it wasn't there before, I'm suggesting, I guess, that we're seeing it more. And I'm talking about mental resiliency, about just mental toughness. He talked to it a little bit in his press conference, but it's not something, and maybe I'm being influenced by it because leading in, he was asked about the players that went to live, and he seemed almost a little chirpy about it and was like, well, why don't you go talk to them instead of talking to us? I just saw kind of a mental posturing and exposure to Scottie Scheffler that I don't remember seeing before. Am I seeing something here, or did you pick up some of that too?
I did. I think it's just the reality of it. He realizes all he can do is control what he does, and he's doing that quite well. I think it's confidence too. If I'm not mistaken, this is his ninth win now on the PGA Tour. I think that you build confidence in that, and there's nothing that confidence is something that you can't really teach. You have to sort of earn that, and I think he is starting to earn that. I had a little bit of a lull when you consider that he's the number one player in the world from his last win until he won, a week ago at Bay Hill at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and then to back it up this week. Um, he loves to play golf, and that's what's so unusual. It's that, I mean, all these guys do it, but he sort of realizes that, when he's on the golf course, that's what he's there to do. He's there to win. He's there to perform, but he's able to separate it once he leaves the golf course. But you have to have that little sort of edge of confidence, that little reality of, hey, I'm pretty darn good here. Let's see how far we can take this. And as long as he does and works towards that goal of trying to be in the mix in all the tournaments he enters, I think that's impressive. And he even alluded to the fact that it's now time to get work started for Houston and continue that. So he is constantly looking forward. I don't think he looks back on it. I mean, I don't recall anyone talking about his putting this week. There'd be no reason to. But
Not
it's almost
adversely,
like
anyway.
he puts that stuff in the rearview mirror and just moves forward.
This is one of the times a year that I think about you in particular. Mark's dad is a legendary basketball coach. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. And the fact, Carney, that your dad is in the Basketball Hall of Fame at the time, and I think about this because of the big dances going on right now, right? Up where I am in this part of the world, Seton Hall, St. John's, Providence didn't get in. At the same time, in the world of sports at large, we've got baseball right around the corner. The boys of summer are back. We've got hockey playoffs that are getting geared up. We've got the Premier League that's getting ready to wrap up and more. So with all of that as the background of this incredible time of year when we have the Players that's just wrapped up, we got a couple of weeks or three more PGA Tour events before we get to the Masters. The table is set. But getting to the set table that lies before us, I definitely want to talk to you about some of the things that we saw. I alluded to them as we were going to the break. First of all, the course setup. I got the sense that the people who were setting up the golf course were a little bit frustrated that they couldn't get it dry harder and faster. But at the same time, talking about setting the table, it set the table for an incredible finish that we saw at this Players. What are your thoughts in terms of the overall setup of the golf course and how Mother Nature provided or didn't?
I think it was good, and you never know. You can't. Mother Nature controls, herself. We had a bad kind of winter a couple months in January and February where we got a lot of rain, wasn't great conditions. in the sense of it wasn't to dry out the golf course. I thought the staff did a great job. They were able to do what they do at times. On Friday afternoon, we started to see a little more firmness, a little bit more on Saturday. But the big factor was the wind, and we didn't get the wins and the challenging wins that we normally get. Players struggled, and I think that's one of the beauties of this golf course, Matt, is that even when you get good conditions, I mean, just look at players that struggled out there. I mean, Max Homa up there in birdies made and shot even par. Now, there were a number of players who were leading in birdies and were not near the lead of the golf tournament, which shows you the challenge of the golf course. I did a little stand-up hit on Friday on PGA Tour Live, and I said, on every shot on this golf course, you feel uncomfortable. And I think, I don't know if there's a better, at least in my mind, I don't know if there's a better way to say it, that despite very favorable conditions, every time you attempt to hit a golf shot, you feel uncomfortable. There are no layups, so to speak, using the sort of connection with basketball right now. There's no layups on this golf course, even the short holes we saw players struggle with. So despite that, but at the same time, you know, it's about the competition, Matt. And no matter whether you set the golf course up hard, whether it's considered easy, favorable, it's still about the competition, and you still have to perform. And certainly those guys, you know, at the top of the leaderboard went out there and performed, and there were players that had the same conditions that didn't perform. Is it ever going to be perfect? No. You can't script perfect when you have a live competition. You can try, but I find it very difficult to be able to do that on a regular basis. And it's what's there. It's in front of you. It's fair to everybody. I think that's the other big thing, is the setup was fair. And it's a challenge, and players were not used to it. I talked to a number of players, and they said the biggest challenge for them were on the shorter irons. They had to be careful to spin because of the receptiveness of the greens, and being able to adjust to that. Yeah, you want to be able to stand up there and know exactly what the golf ball does every time, but that's the beauty of talent and being able to adjust to it. And those that were able to adjust to it, you know, certainly gave themselves a chance to win this past week.
Carney, I have a feeling that you and I have the same perspective on the following, and that is, I love seeing players come out of nowhere. Now, obviously, they're not out of nowhere. They're there for a reason. They're amongst the best players in the world, but players that you don't expect. I mean, if you look at this season alone, Grayson Murray back in the winner's circle, Nick Dunlap, Matthew Pavone, Jake Knapp, Austin Eckroat, just to give you some examples, I really enjoyed seeing those players emerge. That's why I like bigger fields. I like the cuts, et cetera, et cetera. But having said all that, and you alluded to it when you first came on with us this morning, the leaderboard that we had at this Players, from Scottie Scheffler ultimately atop the leaderboard, to what we saw from Wyndham Clark and the heartbreaking lip out on 18, to what we saw from Xander Schauffele looking like, is he going to continue a march where, yeah, maybe he will fulfill the promise of the potential that we see in him. And then Brian Harman, the reigning Open champion, giving it a run and finishing on 19 under as well. How important to the tour was this leaderboard and this strength at this event?
Well, I mean, it's always important, Matt, but I don't know if it made it any different, because I think what you alluded to was sort of the guys, I wouldn't say, as you said, not out of nowhere, but that's what I think separates the PGA Tour from Live, in that you have stories like that. I mean, the stories are set over there. They know the big name players. And again, I don't hear much about it. Of course, I don't follow much of it, but I think what you want, to me, it's always been about the competition. And when it's a big event, and you look at that, Matt, you have, you know, going back to 2022, you had 3 major championship winners in those final 4 guys, in Scottie Scheffler and Wyndham Clark and Brian Harman. You had 2 of the last 4 major winners there. So they stepped up to the plate. You know, winning those major championships helped them. And as you talked about Xander, maybe the most accomplished player not to win a major championship now. So to me, that's what it's about. It's this event is the Players Championship. It is the PGA Tour's Players Championship, and it's, you know, you can debate on whether it's a major, whatever. It certainly had the excitement of a major. Um, and I just think too much maybe made of all that, Matt, in the sense of you get an opportunity to play on the PGA Tour, and you're either able to take advantage of it or you're not. And I think that that's what the beauty of it is. But I don't think it makes it like, okay, well, the PGA Tour is so great now because we had this finish. I think it's always been great. And I think it's what it represents, at least in my mind, that separates it. So this just sort of is a little more icing on the cake.
That icing on the cake, of course, Carney, we have 3 more weeks of play on the PGA Tour before we go to Augusta. But nonetheless, I'm going to ask you the question. Storylines heading into the Masters, what do you think they are primary now?
Well, it has to be Scottie Scheffler for sure. Wyndham Clark. And then what are the live players going to do? Your defending champion is now moved on to live. You have former champions over there and John Rahm and Dustin Johnson and Sergio Garcia and Phil Mickelson. Are they going to compete? It's the more time they've had sort of away from the grind of the competition of the PGA Tour. I have to feel, while they're all competitors, could be a factor. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's great if they're in the mix, and it would be okay if one of them wins it. That's fine, because you want the best competition. But I think to me is, with everything else going on, is it gonna be the same, or we're gonna see maybe some separation from that?
Well, let me ask you this, Carney, before we say goodbye on this Tuesday morning. If I gave you Scotty, Xander, or Rory versus the field, would you take the 3 versus the field?
Yes.
Really?
I would.
Interesting. Yep. All right. I'm going to leave it there so we have more to talk about the next time Mark Carnevale is with us, 92 PGA Tour Rookie of the Year and the Arnold Palmer Award recipient as a result. Carney, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Always great to be with you, Matty. Take care.